Hello again, everybody. This is Mr. Reeves back with you, and I wanted to help you today in finding the formulas for the area and the perimeter of a semicircle and a quarter circle. All right, so first off, we need to know that this right here, I'm going to use blue for this one, this right here is called a semicircle. And the reason it's called a semicircle is it is a half circle. And a half circle, you go halfway around. All right. So this is a semicircle. That's the first thing you need to know. Right here, we're going to call this one a quarter circle. And there's probably a fancy name for a quarter circle, but I don't know what it is. So I'm simply going to call it a quarter circle, and I'm going to put 1/4 of a circle. All right, so we've been working with a full circle. So just a reminder over here, let's write down the formulas for a full circle. So for a full circle, we have the area. And I know you've all been studying really hard. The area of a circle is pi times the radius squared. And we have the circumference. And the circumference of a circle is the diameter times pi. All right, so those are the formulas for a full circle. In fact, let me just go ahead and make right here. There you see your full circle. All right, so I wonder if we can fill that with a color, huh? Let me try this again. Let's make it blue. Let me see if I can make a circle here and actually make it filled. There we go. All right, so there's our full circle. The area is pi times the radius squared, and the circumference, which is the distance all the way around, is the diameter times pi. All right, so now we're going to have not a full circle, but we're going to have a semicircle. And each one of those is also going to have an area, right? Now, they're not going to have a circumference, they're going to have a perimeter. Now, I'm going to let you in on a little secret if you did not already know this, all right? Circumference is just a fancy word for the perimeter of a circle. So when I say the circumference of a circle, the perimeter is the distance around the outside of any shape. It's just because a circle doesn't have any segments to add together, it gets a special name. Circles have lots of special things about them, all right? So the circumference of a circle is actually the same as the perimeter of a circle. But on these ones, we cannot talk about the circumference because even though we have a curved part here and a curved part here, we have these straight segments. All right, well, let's start with the formulas for areas because they're easier and I hope they make sense to you. All right, so the area of a full circle is pi times the radius squared, but how much of a circle do we have here? We have half of a circle, right? So doesn't it make sense that the area would be 1/2 of pi times the radius squared? Or we could say pi times the radius squared divided by 2. Many times students like dividing by 2 rather than multiplying by half, although those give you the same result. All right, now what about this right here? All right, this is a half of a circle. This is a quarter of a circle. So it's either going to be 1/4 times pi times the radius squared, right? Or pi times the radius squared, what? Divided by 4, right? So does that make sense? The full circle is pi times the radius squared. The half circle is half of that, or divided by 2. And the fourth quarter circle is 1/4 of that, or divided by 4. All right, so we got the easy part down. I got to be honest with you, this next part is a little bit more tricky. All right, but let's take a look right here and see if we can come up with a way to get all the way around. All right, so let's start with this part first because I think this part is actually easier for you to see right here. So if I were to go right along like this, all right, from there to there, and I'd ask you, what does that length represent? I hope you would say that length represents this right here. That is what? That is the diameter. Correct? Yeah? Okay, so that first part of that first part of the perimeter is the diameter. But then we also have this part right here, and this part's a little bit harder. Actually, it's a lot harder to do, right? Because I have to go curved. I don't have a special tool. So when I work my way over, and I'm going to leave a little space right here, and you'll know why in a second. All right, just occurred to me this kind of looks like the side look of a taco, doesn't it? Can you see it, taco? All right. Anyways, so what do we have here? All the way around a full circle would be the circumference, right? But what do we have? We have half of that. So we have diameter times pi divided by 2, correct? It's half of that. Or let me ask you, what do you get when you take the diameter divided by 2? You get the radius times pi. So if I want to know what the perimeter is of this shape, I'm going to add those two together. So I can do the diameter plus the diameter times pi over 2, right? There's the diameter plus the diameter times pi over 2. Or if you prefer, you could say I'm going to make that part the radius times pi. So it's the diameter plus the radius times pi. We usually, though, just put r pi because r is a number. All right, so those two formulas, they're basically the same formula, just written slightly differently. That's how you find the perimeter of a semicircle. All right. Now, what about finding the perimeter of a quarter circle? All right, well, here we go. Now, right here, let me do this. Right from there to there, and right from there to there, let me ask you what we have. Well, what do we have right there? We have a radius, don't we? This is r, and this is r, correct? So that part together is r plus r, and then I'm going to do this again. All right. I must be hungry because now I'm thinking of this as a part of a quesadilla. Yeah, purple quesadilla. Okay, now let me ask you a question right here. All the way around is diameter times pi. So when we went halfway around, we did diameter times pi divided by 2, right? So this is going to be diameter times pi divided by what? 4, right? The diameter times pi divided by 4. Okay. Or if you prefer, if the diameter divided by 2 is the radius, another way to say this is it's going to be the radius times pi divided by 2. All right, so I'm going to give you a couple different ways to look at this, and ultimately you could pick the way you like best. We can do this formula in terms of the radius, or we can do this formula in terms of the diameter. So let's do it in terms of the radius first. If we were going to do this in terms of the radius, we have a radius and a radius and a radius times 2 over pi, right? So a radius plus a radius would be 2 radiuses, right? Radius plus radius plus the radius times pi divided by 2. So that's one way to do it. That's how to get the perimeter within terms of a radius. But what about if you want to do it instead in terms of the diameter? Well, guys, what is a radius plus a radius? If I straighten these two out, I would get a diameter, right? And then if I use this part right here, I get the diameter times pi divided by 4. All right, so those are the formulas for finding the area and the perimeter of a half circle and a quarter circle. So make sure you've written those down and you have them in your notes, because in just a few minutes we're going to do some problem solving involving these quarter circles and these semicircles. All right, thanks for watching, everybody.